let me welcome the next set of guests who are going to speak for us, and they are amazing. And today's topic is about sustainable urban habitats and food ecosystem. This is the need of the hour. While seeing the situations around, it is something we should all talk about. Let's welcome Ms. Gauri Sarin, founder and living without medicine. She's going to lead this session, and I'm looking forward to this great session. Miss Kalpana Ramesh, founder the Rainwala project. I think there is a slight glitch. Can you guys hear me? Because I'm not able to see the screen. Mr. Kapil, founder and CEO. We have Ms. Neha Bhatia, co-founder the Prodigal Farm. We have Miss Aparna, and she is founder Bijom. We also have Mr. Patanjali Jha, Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax, Karnataka and Goa region, and founder of Water and Natural. So we are all set to start our next session. This session is going to be about sustainable urban habitat and system, which is the need of the hour. So over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, all the participants. Thank you for all the panel members, inspiring panel members who are here with us. Today's topic is sustainable urban habitats and sustainable food systems. Okay. There was a very specific reason why we chose, something like this. And we've had earlier sessions right this morning. Some of them I had a good opportunity to attend, including people Baba, Rajender Singh ji, the previous couple of sessions, and had the opportunity of listening to some of the speakers who have been talking about both rural and urban habitats. Some of the challenges we face and what changes in consciousness is really required at both ends. We decided to focus on urban habitats as of now in this particular system, in this particular session, and with the whole idea that there are a lot of people out there who seem to be, like you and me, who have stepped out and started making a difference. They could be in the form of activists, they could be in the form of just civil society members. They could be just people who are managing RWAs. There are people who are just homemakers, ordinary homemakers who've decided that they need to be conscious citizens. But there are also a set of people who went a step further than that, and they actually demonstrated something which is really workable, something which is scalable, something which is visible, something which, when people see it happening on the ground, they suddenly feel, yes, change is really possible, not in small parts, but in fairly demonstrated, visible parts. And this whole session is about those people who really not just stepped out, but stepped up, who didn't just make a difference, but who actually made an impact by creating a very, very sound, systems, ventures, initiatives which are sustainable in themselves. And those are the stories we are going to be sharing today. Personally, being the founder of Bhumija and Living Without Medicine, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of organic agripreneurs, those who have actually entered in the whole organic agriculture space much earlier than the real boom started, which seems to have compounded during COVID times. The demand for healthy food, of conscious living, seems to have arisen significantly during this time. But these are people who foresaw this, the people who were sensitive to the environment and who actually started being part of the organic agriculture movement long before many of us even understood what organic means. Many of them are women. So I'm emphasizing the fact that women have played a very important role, and 3 of my panelists are women. And so it was actually unconscious attempt to get women out here. And it so happened that they outshone the men in terms of numbers here. So yes, women both in urban India and rural India have played a very important role. Some of the biggest campaigns that we have carried out in our city, Gurgaon, for example, huge number of women who have participated in them, led those movements, whether it is about plastic, whether it's about waste management, whether it is about water conservation and revival. I think women have played a very important role, notwithstanding the fact that we have 2 wonderful speakers out here who are men. I also wanted to emphasize that farm to folk is this new genre of connecting farmers, which is literally rural India with urban India, and how some of these speakers we have here are playing a very important role in actually breaking the boundaries of rural and urban. And that is something which we really propagate in a very big way. And the last but not the least, I'm going to really emphasize a lot on the future of our cities, with people like who we have in our panel and, earlier panelists. I think we have a lot of hope for our future. And we want to create a vision of the future of our cities and urban, rural habitats, because that's already been touched upon. So I'm going to now start with our first speaker, Neha Bhatia. Neha Bhatia runs a venture, an agri-venture called Prodigal Farms. This is based in Noida and also Uttarakhand. Neha Bhatia is somebody I've known for some time and very inspired by the work she has done to bring farm to folk in a very innovative, creative, more than innovative, creative way to its consumers so it could attract consumers. From attracting consumers on giving them very, very delicious, creative food items on the plate, she brought agriculture to the schools and colleges of North India. And extremely inspired by her work. So my question to Neha is that really you are from London School of Economics. I mean, one of the premier schools across the world, and you could have chosen any career for yourself. But what did you choose? You chose to be in the area of organic agriculture. You chose to be there working with small kids and changing their lives and changing the lives of urban citizens, residents who did not know what it was to taste the taste of organic food. So what really inspired you? What got you here?
Hi everyone on the panel and those of you who will be watching and are watching at the moment. So yes, interestingly, I had a interesting journey moving away from policy on the desk to real policy work. I would call that. Like today, I think like what I do couldn't have been more closer to home in sense of what I have been studying or reading about at school. So while I was doing my policy work in London with different organizations, I did get a chance to actually work a lot on the ground and in different geographies. So East Africa and India were mainly the areas that we would work in. And it just happened that the realizations on the ground pertaining to agriculture were the same. So degradation of soil, climate change, people in the cities having trouble accessing cleaner food, farmer woes, everything was the same. And it just felt really unfair to sit in a cubicle and write papers about it and do really nothing, maybe because I was, feeling the need to really, do something on the ground. And to be honest, like it started more from understanding the supply system, but it led me all the way back to the farm. And in fact, I visited some of the people, on the panel today and try to understand what was happening. And it's just a 3-year journey for me. But it's been really inspiring to see what some of the people who've already been working in this space were doing. And that's how it started for us. It was purely my love for better food and for everyone and myself. And it led me all the way back to the farms and the farmers. And just 2 things that I could add here, that during my journey, I also realized that one side there was this, the farmers who were having, the usual issues that we read about, those were real. And nobody really wanted their children to be, the next generation to be a farmer. So that was a disturbing thought, like the stigmas were real. And on the other side, there were people like us who were probably buying organic or cleaner food mainly out of fear, or it was more like an elite item in the bigger cities. The dialogue was missing. So I think that's where, for me, it was, getting these 2 worlds together. And children are the best. Like they can start dialogues that a lot of us can't even think of in their household. So I think they inspired me. And the day things changed when a kid came to my farm and said that आलू का पेड़ कहाँ है. So like for me as a small town person who grew up in a small town, probably with a garden in my backyard, that was the hard hitting moment that we have to do something. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Neha. It's amazing to see that annoying, I would say, to see that if you look at Indian cities, children who have grown in Indian cities are so disconnected with what is really going on at the back end. How do they really get food on their plates? How do they really how does food grow? What is it to eat in the right way? What is it to cook in the right way? Not just children, and I would say at the cost of getting the ire of a lot of homemakers, that yeah, I think the women have lost the art of traditional food making and of understanding that what goes into the food and why it should be what it is. So I guess yes, what you're trying to bring to the children is really the connection back to the soil, to the foods, to what really goes into their mouth. So that's wonderful initiative, Neha. I'm now going to bring in Aparna Rajgopal. Aparna also is based in Noida, and she's again been a very, very inspiring what should I say, an agri-venturist. I don't like to use the word venture with her because she's when I saw Aparna, creating this model, which is called Bijom, and it is really worth a visit for everyone. I saw it all about passion. I saw it all about coming through the heart. I saw it coming through a very sensitive, conscious individual who understands how everything is interconnected, and you cannot say that we human beings can live without connection with animals, with food, with soil, with the entire ecosystem. And she's been able to bring this out beautifully, demonstrate it in her farm Bijam. So Aparna, you'll have to unmute yourself. Aparna is a lawyer, and my question to really her is that her focus, and this is a very special reason why I got an Aparna here, apart from what I see her doing. I suddenly saw during COVID an entire focus of lots of citizens, sensitive citizens, on animals. It's the first time I saw them talking about animals with the kind of fervor they did actually talk about. We had forgotten them. I think living in the habitats that we live in, we genuinely believe when a leopard suddenly moves into our city, or we see a whole lot of cows out there eating trash, we think it is, I mean, they're not supposed to be here. I remember there have been so many shouts of residents who suddenly dogs come into their colonies, and of course they're looking for food to eat. And suddenly we saw that when suddenly food disappeared from the roads, so to speak, the streets where these animals would eat from, there would be citizens coming up and saying, listen, we need to feed these cows and these dogs and all of that. So it's really that first sense of thing which really came up. Now you had already developed an ecosystem around animals, and you actually do not necessarily believe in dairy, and yet you take care of a large number of animals in your farm. So why did you do it? And I think it's a huge investment of time and energy, and sometimes not returnable time. So, or that's what I think. So what made you do this, and do you think it is sustainable?
Thank you, Gauri, for moderating this, and hi everyone. This was I think I was born an activist in my head. I did law, but I didn't see the solutions to and I would do animal rescue all the time, in spite of being studying to be a lawyer. I never saw the solutions. We would keep rescuing animals and sending them to shelters, which were unsustainable spaces themselves. Where you're collecting donations and, feeding animals and hoarding them and keeping them, and more animals out there. So it's that kind of actually accelerated this whole thing. And once when I accidentally tumbled into farming, which itself is a long story, I suddenly saw the connect between animals, domestic animals, people and agriculture. I realized that there's a huge connection. And also the constant, we all know of our factory farming is bad from a humane point of view, but I don't know how many people realize that it creates environmental problems. The kind of water that is used, the amount of water, the amount of land used for grazing, the methane emissions, the unsustainable ways of growing food, I mean, of creating food systems. Factory farming is not a great food system to create. I realize that the solution lies in agriculture. We've also now realized, you rightly brought up COVID, because we've also realized that zoonotic diseases are all, many of them, they find their source in this kind of factory farming. The swine flu, avian flu, Ebola, and this particular mad cow. So a source of all these pandemics are actually in factory farming. And once I started agriculture, I started accidentally, and as this sanctuary grew, the idea was that we should sustain it ourselves. That's where this whole effort came from. And once we started doing it, we realized that using the animals, we are able to reduce minimally the resources we bring in from outside. They started giving us the gobar, they started giving us whatever we needed to grow food. And over a period of 6 years now, what began as a small journey, we have now created an environment where we are able to grow huge amounts of food using the animals who are living with us. It's their forever home. We also realize it's about conservation of species. There are so many lessons we have learned in these 6 years. When we talk about conservation, we always think it is about wild flora, wild fauna. We rarely talk about domestic species, indigenous cattle species, indigenous goat species. There are tons of, the biodiversity on our planet is immense, whether it is seeds or whether it is animals. So slowly we started building a cattle preservation center. Then rightly, like you said, Gauri, I was never comfortable with dairy farms, with factory farms where cows were raised only for an ROI. Then as we explored it, we realized, even forget the humane aspect of it, it doesn't even make economic sense in the long run, because when you raise, especially now when there's this craze for A2 milk, with a Jersey cow, it was giving you 20 liters. The Desi cow is giving you 4 liters, and you're trying to do a business out of a Desi cow. There was no economic ROI to this actually. We realized the greater ROI is in agriculture. So even from a pure economic point of view, environment point of view, humane point of view, we realized the shift should be agriculture. And that's the whole basis of Bijom today, where we have an animal sanctuary to showcase this, where we, the urban and rural people, are able to come to us, to our place, and a lot of urban people come and they get sensitized to this whole journey that I'm talking about.
I think I wanted to also touch on the fact that the vegan movement, which has now taken center stage in the whole world, and which has stood against the dairy industry in such a big way, versus this whole space of integrated goshalas with farming, is completely different. These are two extremely different models, and the way the ancient traditional systems used to work is actually keep the cattle in their farms, use the gomutra, maybe use some of the excess milk which they required for in small quantity. For health reasons more than anything else.
Yes.
And discard dairy industries today considered, and there is a wonderful video called Cowspiracy, I think most of you all should see it, is that the way dairy industry is destroying lands because of grazing, the methane emissions which are happening. Of course, these are all very debatable things, but most importantly, the cruelty and overall so environment is being not being cruel with animals also. I mean, environment consciousness is about being sensitive to practically every creature, including plants, right? So here I'm going to bring in Patanjali ji. Patanjali ji has actually demonstrated beautifully what is being sensitive to to really bring plants into this whole this urban culture, which has forgotten that Plants are actually living beings, okay? And growing a forest called the Vanya forest, which he has done on the banks of Narmada River in Madhya Pradesh, as well as in Bihar, in Punya district. This IT commissioner has really created a marvel on earth. He has been able to not just create a very, very fascinating ecosystem, which can be replicated, in my view, in urban habitats, but also bring the whole value of the medicinal value of trees which are grown in a natural way to the world. Patanjali ji, are you there? He was having some difficulty in logging in. He's there, very much there. So I invite you in this. Are you there?
Yes. It's a privilege to be among such wonderful souls. Our journey had started about a couple of decades back. We pride ourselves at being the purest in terms of following Fukuoka, Albert Howard, and I visited Savi Sahab's farm when I was posted in Bombay, and I thought I had them all, and no compromise on tilling. I was hearing the earlier panel, very famous people, without naming them, when they would be asked about how to produce water, how to address some of these solutions that I thought we Indians marvel at. We are so verbose and so argumentative, and we have such grand this thing. These are very simple things, you know. The Goethe, that German philosopher, he said once, the most difficult thing to see is what is in front of your eyes. It is so true. People, the corporate world is talking of sustainable development. Here, India has the wherewithal, where we can do regenerative things, which we can bring back things to normalcy. I would just take 5 minutes to say the four or five problems and how it can be solved. And it is not segregated. You see, the five impending calamities being, one is the cancer. They say 10% of Indians may get cancer in their lifetime, which is a number of 13 crores. And multiplied by 4, their family members get involved in a country of 125, 30 crore. 50 crore would struggle against cancer. That's number one. Number two, the temperature in the last 10 years has increased by 1 degree. As against the earlier 1 degree took them 100 years. The third is very few people understand about soil. Some of our panelists do. And no tilling. Tilling is a crime that we must understand. I disagree with everything which does not talk of no tilling. I can again say why. So the one thing is cancer, the two is temperature, the third is soil, fourth is water. The underground water has gone to incredible levels. The rivers are dying, small rivers are dead. Any river which passes through the cities have become nada. And the fifth is the unemployment. Here is a system of raising food forest, no till, no poison, multi-layered. What we have in plenty in this country is the sunlight. So that is the twist in Fukuoka, that instead of only occupying couple of this thing, let's be a little conscious and occupy the vertical space. The same land can support enormous amount of productivity, enormous amount of produce, provided we bring life back to soil, which is possible by simply stop tilling. Follow Fukuoka. He was an angel. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I could see the vision of this man. He would have influenced some of the most brilliant minds across the universe. I'm one of them who's not brilliant, but I understood what he was trying to say. So now the temperature on our farm is 14 degrees lower in a district which is one of the hottest districts in India, where temperature goes to 50 degrees and where it stays. So the birds die. You would cry the state of affairs that we have brought ourselves into, and how simple the solution is. Once you start, our soil supports minimum 6 crops at different heights and different levels, and the the bonus is first is the temperature comes crashing in the year one. Normally people say that the forest can never be raised in a short time. I don't agree with that. We have done it. In the year one, now you can bring down the temperature by 2 degrees. So instead of doing one crop, you start growing different trees, different plants. They have symbiotic relationship. They are very happy when they're grown together. Temperature comes crashing. Since you're not tilling, your soil is porous. Any rains which fall on your farm, the recent Orissa and Calcutta, this thing in Bihar, everything, the vicious rains that followed in our region, the next day all the water was put underground in 1 day time flat because the soil is so porous. So the solutions for water, underground water recharge, for river system to rejuvenate. If you have such food forests, multi-layered, thick vegetative growth, which is evergreen incidentally, and different from permaculture. It is just grow them with gay abandon, grow them at different heights, and this is what the resultant this thing is. And the produce of our farm, we take no money from anyone who's suffering in life. Till date, we have cured some 150 odd people. Of them suffering from cancer, of them suffering from rheumatic arthritis, easily curable. We have some of the best turmerics. We have some of the best wine of Guruchi, which now the COVID-19 time knows about it. These are traditional knowledge which should be there.
Very, very active in some of our communities, sharing his knowledge very, very openly, building a movement of food forest across India. And he's promised that once he retires as an income tax commissioner, he is going to focus full time on creating this ecosystem across India. So we're looking forward to that, Patanjali ji. We incidentally in Gurgaon started our first mini forest, medicinal and food forest last year. We grew that in one of the buns which needed to be. So I personally feel you don't even need to, you mentioned about vertical forest. I believe there are hundreds of green belts which exist in all cities. There are empty fallow plots which are lying without being used. We need to really utilize every single place for forestry rather than lawns and decorative plants, etc. Not only these forests are going to do what they do for environment, but they are great sources of wonderful medicinal foods, as well as food for poor people. And birds and bees and and animals. So it's an ecosystem which creates abundance in a city rather than looking at cities separately from food systems. So I'm now coming to Kapil. Kapil has created this Kapil Mandewala. It's a tongue twister. Kapil has created a venture called Edible Roots, and I've been following him for the past several years. Kapil is in the car. I can see that. Yeah. So my question is that when you started this venture and you kind of continued struggling to stay with it, what is it which made you think it's for the long haul? There are many people like you who kind of give up halfway, and you started much before the wave really picked up. So what inspired you? What kept you going? And what made you think that this is something which has got a future?
Thank you, Gauri. I'm really glad to be here on this panel. I think what has kept me going, one thing has been that a lot of support from the people who took on this task of growing their own food, who were growing in their own balconies or their rooftops, and they were reaching out to us, and seeing the smiles on their faces, seeing the joy in their lives. And I've seen over the last 5-6 years that I've been doing this now in Delhi, I've seen huge transformations from people who did not understand environment, did not understand nature, who are living more consumeristic lifestyle. And just the act of starting with one pot or a few pots in their balcony or rooftop has completely transformed their lives, and also has influenced their own families. The people are they understand environment a lot better. They understand the plant a lot better. They understand food a lot better. They have a huge amount of respect for. So this one has really sensitized the consumer, who are the biggest people who pay for the farmer's food, much more towards the farmer. Everybody in our client group, they're always talking about, because when they start growing, they start realizing how difficult it is to grow something. What are the challenges that they have to face, and because of that, then they have a much more appreciation for the farmer as well. That's one. The second thing has been a huge support from the community. You know, a lot of people have come to me, and now Edible Roots, where people come and tell me, like, you know, how can they become part of this movement, because they also are frustrated somewhere with the lifestyle they have been living. They want to connect with how things are going, and that's why, you know, creating a space for people, creating a model for people that are shown to do good work, to live a sustainable lifestyle and still be a sustainable business. So I think that has been the drive for me to constantly work on creating a model. Permaculture has been a huge guide for me, because I really connect how nature designs, and how can I design an organization that also runs on similar principles, where it starts becoming regenerative, self-sustaining. So I think those are the reasons that I have kept at this and kept this going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kapil. And yeah, it's a huge contribution. You know, sometimes we don't realize how we are making a difference to people's lives. You know, in a large, impactful sense. But it's like I always say that you know, consciousness is something very. It's kind of like it's just like a snowball which keeps you know, on its own moving. By connecting one with few more, and then those with more. So it's really like a snowballing effect, and that's really the power of building such initiatives on the ground. Okay, so it's not about you or those few people you think you may be influencing directly, but there are large number of people on you know, indirectly, who get influenced, and it kind of keeps growing. Yeah, great. So I'm now calling into our last panelist. Kalpana Ramesh. Kalpana is a star. She's a star on the water horizon. One big need is of water. I think every city in India has actually felt the need of augmenting their water resources. They've had tough summer last year. It was the first time when Niti Aayog came up with this whole report that we can see water disappearing from the cities of India in a very short while. And I'm not going to put an ear to it in spite of what they have been saying, because we have this amazing ability to regenerate. We have this amazing ability to create leaders like Kalpana Ramesh, who will come up and who will think of solutions and will work on solutions, not just talk about them. So they're not just activists, they're really ground level people. We did water harvesting regeneration in Gurgaon, and we see a lot of things. I see somebody on the chat box doubting this whole thing about, you know, water conservation, and is it really happening, and are really people. It's absolutely happening. There are so many people who are getting more and more aware of why they need to be harvesting water, why they need to be conserving water, and every single voice counts. Kalpana has not just inspired the people of Hyderabad by what initiative she's taken, she's also inspired somebody like Narendra Modi. So that's a long story, so we'll share that with you offline. But she was one of the 7 women who were chosen on International Women's Day to share her story and come on his social media platform. So here, you know, Kalpana, she's a designer who's actually come up with come on the forefront on water. So it must have been extremely challenging for you to do what you did. I saw a lot of josh, resilience since I have known you, and you stuck it out. And I recall when the first time I met you, you were kind of lamenting on the, you know, the probably the insensitivity or lack of awareness of a lot of citizens. And from that day to now, there are large number of communities who have joined hands with you. But you've also managed to get stakeholders like the government to join hands with you. You've managed to pull in resources from CSR to make this happen. So you've created really a multi-stakeholder a model in Hyderabad and demonstrated how it can make a difference, Kalpana. I just want to know what is the source of this inspiration and how do you propose to move?
So, can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Yeah. So my source of inspiration, yes. If I look at myself, maybe 10 years ago, I was not connected to water the way I am today. So I think the connect to water is itself the inspiration, right? I got connected to water and I don't think I'll ever let go of it and keep on working towards it. So I started off as an individual wanting a tanker-free home. I mean, as simple as that. Like Patanjali ji just said, all our solutions don't lie, are not complex really. They're simple. You just have to find ways to do it and the intent to do. So when we moved back from the US, most of the communities that we lived in were tanker driven, and most of the months we were dependent on tankers. And I always used to wonder why there isn't any other solution other than tankers. So that's how our sustainable home, happened. And still, the home didn't really give me that connect for water yet. I mean, I did see results year after year. But what really opened my eyes were the efforts we did in our community. When our tanker-free community happened, that really made me think that why not take this awareness to people? Why not make it, make people think about their own water, connect them to water? So that's where my journey really began. My motivation is simply water. I mean, and it's really become my passion today. So starting with an individual, then communities, then talking about awareness in different communities and my friends circles. And, it started off right there, doing rainwater harvesting or suggesting to my clients or my friends. And then it moved on to citywide when I joined the TEDx Hyderabad and became part of TEDx Hyderabad. um, so our initiative Save 10K boards, which is basically Save 10,000 dead boards. When I started off, embarked on that journey, that's when I started understanding what is the city situation really. I mean, now I know my home and community. I'm extremely confident I can take this knowledge forward. But what's really happening with the city? That's when I started exploring and went to several departments, just like a lame person. I mean, where do you start? Really, there's no template for you. There's nothing like, if this is your beginning and this is where your journey ends. There's nothing like that. So I started learning more and more about rainwater harvesting and understood that this is the only way forward. And then started off with also lake rejuvenation, because lakes are the largest catchment for water. So connecting people to water became my mission. So even with lakes, I started building communities around the lake where they connect with water. I mean, many agreed, came along, many didn't come along, but most didn't ignore. I mean, they started thinking water. So once I built that community, then came along CSR, and Panarica India really supported me initially. Like I was having a conversation with you, Gauri. I don't know if you remember. I said I didn't even know how to pitch. I don't know how to pitch to going to a corporate company, but I just spoke my heart. I found out that they help sustainable water activities. I just went to them, spoke, and I really spoke my heart, and you won't believe they actually funded me. And then it became more interesting, where I could build these good practices around the lake. I said, why everywhere burned, and built an interesting wooden walk bridge on one of the edges of the lake, and how I carefully preserved one open edge of the lake which could have been encroached. How I made communities remove their illegal sewage lines out of the lake and do legal sewage, get their sewage to the legal lines. So there itself, 25-30% of the sewage is out of the lake. So working decentralized is the mantra, I thought, and that's the way to go. Local, community level, decentralized. So once I understood that, like from a complete dump yard lake, I could get birds back to the lake. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw migratory birds come back to this little small lake that we started rejuvenating. Almost 110 tons of plastics removed from a small 8-acre lake. And a lot of things that happened around it. And rainwater harvesting was happening in parallel. But what I realized is I'm still doing a piecemeal job. I need to connect all the dots. That's when this plan of how do I make it a citywide approach? How do I make this thing scalable? Then I decided to divide our city into several blocks, about 98 blocks, based on micro watershed management. And each microshed is one block. So how do I put all my focus in that block. Many people do not come forward to do rainwater harvesting. I said, let me reward them. Let me tell, I'm going to give you a free rainwater harvesting pit. If 8 of you, in this street, which has 12 buildings, if you guys come forward, I'm going to give you one rainwater harvesting pit for free. I said, this model should work. And it started working. It's actually working. In fact, more and more people are curious to know. In fact, we started the first, common area injection board today on, World Environment Day. And many neighbors in different streets, they came up and said, we will take up this street. We will ensure that all these people do rainwater harvesting can come back.
This is fantastic, Kalpana. So this is like really the power of really starting out with an intention, with a vision, with a mission, with clarity of purpose, and being able to bring in people who did not know. Incidentally, we have in Gurgaon, we have a platform called Making Model Gurgaon, and there we have a lot of RWAs who were probably not sensitized initially to what is it to do harvesting. I mean, they just had very narrow focus of looking at their own amenities and basic comforts demanding from the government, or ensuring that their smaller issues at the colony level are solved. Today, on this very platform, practically every RWA or colony representative has become sensitized to harvesting water. They have come together and kind of, those who did not have pits at all, some of them had, redundant pits, some didn't have one at all. Even in 200 acres plotted areas, there were absolutely no pits. And they have come forward and said, yes, we want this to happen. CSR has, of course, played a very important role, I must say. But so has, I think, government been also awakened. I think there's a very big role here of waking up the government too, because there isn't enough. It's people, citizens like us, who actually push the government to, to put their priorities in different places. I remember when I used to go to the government in 2017, before this Niti Aayog report came in, and I would talk about water harvesting, they would look at me as I'm some crazy woman. And I even met Nitin Gadkari ji at that time, saying that, water is going to be a crisis. And I think even he didn't believe me that time. Each one of you, okay, when all of you get a chance to speak, is that we know COVID has given a very clear message to us. There is no two ways about it. Our health, our personal health and our well-being cannot be disconnected from the health of the planet. That is a very, very clear thing. What do you think in terms of what kind of a role your initiatives, your ventures, which you are running currently, will play, not now, but if you look at the horizon of the next 10 years, do you think these kind of ventures are going to have an impact and is going to convert a lot of people, a significant number of people living in urban areas, into sustainable living, into eco-friendly ways, into being able to coexist in environment? So each of you, if you can give your 2 bits, and also share maybe a line of what you think you can influence policy, what would you like to say to the government? Okay, so Neha, let's start with you.
I think one thing I could quickly say, in just the last 2 months, what we've seen and observed, it's like definitely more people are more curious. So while the last 3 years have been about setting up transparent systems between the farmers and the urban consumers and getting the entire family in the system, but it's in the last 2 months, the kind of questions we've got, we're really happy that more and more people are asking those questions, which we've been, pushing them to for the last 2 years. Secondly, definitely there is an increased interest in being self-reliant and growing your own food. So while the year-long programs that we would run with schools and even families were happening, but now the interest in the Atmanirbhar has to come even in that space, and it is coming, and it's all coming from people. So I think that's the other thing we've observed. And like everybody keeps hearing, right? Like suddenly relying on your traditional knowledge, the indigenous crops, the, you know, the immunity that comes from all these, you know, things that we grow at our farms, our local farms. There is an interest in that. So those are the three things that we've observed. And I think that's going to stay. It's going to grow, it's going to stay, and there'll be more and more people asking these
And I
questions.
think education in schools, which is you have taken up in earnest, is going to be a very big game changer also in times to come, Neha. Thank you very much. What about Aparna? Aparna, would you like to say, how do you think the level of awareness is going to grow in the next one decade with initiatives like yours?
Yeah, from BJOM's goals have evolved over the past 6 years, and today maybe our primary goal is integration of spaces and species in agriculture. Basically, that means urban and rural. It means animal with human, traditional agriculture. Then growing soil, building compassion, regeneration of nature systems using agriculture, clean food, and creating a commercially viable model using traditional integrated agriculture for small farm holdings. There has to be economy at the base of anything we do, because if there is no economy attached to it, then it is not realistic for others to emulate, follow, build. So while our primary goal is sustainability, our higher goal is actually taking this other people to getting for others to create this model also.
Thank you, Aparna. Kapil, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I can go next. I think what COVID has done is it has created a more sensitized awareness amongst people about, taking self responsibility, as Neha mentioned, and people are more open to the whole idea of understanding that how they can become part of the production rather than just consumption. And I think what the government can do in the near future, in the coming years, is make this easy for people rather than creating hurdles around. So mainly simple regulations around what people can or cannot do in their common spaces, in the RWAs, in the public areas, the areas around the city, around the municipality. So and maybe create more awareness. Just sensitize people that Cuba is a great example where the city produces so much food that not only the city is fed, but the people around also are fed. So why can't cities be production zones other than just consumption zones? I think that's the message I want to give to the government, and where we should be going as a society.
Thank you. I think urban farming is a big one. Patanjali ji, yes. Next, you go and you are in the government. So any strong policy recommendations for government?
Definitely. I also met Vice Chairman Niti Ayog. They already have this agroforestry. They are talking about this thing. About a couple of years back, we went and said that this is much superior to anything that we have known. One simple this thing which can address our water, our health, our temperature, our rivers, our employment. When you combine it with CBG, I met Sant Sinchiwal, amazing man, only a Sikh can do that, who revived that river system. He told me two simple things. He gave me a very important tip. He said, to the poor, you say that it has a lot of money. It has. It is unimaginable. Because once you bring life back to soil, no costs, only the labor, it's just the gyan, and very simple. I have aversion to all those who try to make it very complicated. It's a very simple thing. Embarrassingly simple to grow trees and bees and all that integrated thing. And to the rich, tell them you die. It is this simple. You would not survive for too long in case if you either practice this or perish.
Patanjali ji, are you willing to take on the challenge of bringing a green cover, food forest green cover to 5 cities of India so that our targets of greening our cities are fulfilled along with People Baba?
Sure, I'm willing to. You see, I have no desire in my life. So already Eco Task Force of the Indian Army is with us. Ram Krishna Mission is with us. And we gifted them 1.5 crore vetiver slip, Gauri. And today that has become 15 crore, which is doing 1,400 tons of carbon sequestration every year, which will multiply 7 times every year, which is doing an enormous amount of water absorption. I admire Kalpana ji, and I would just like to recite this poem for a person who dedicated his entire life for water, my favorite, Anupam Mishra. So his poetry so well depicts the entire state of affairs that we are currently in. So I must recite this, which goes like this. ये सैकड़ों हजारों तालाब अचानक शून्य से नहीं प्रकट हुए। इसके पीछे एक इकाई थी इन्हें बनवाने वालों की, तो दहाई थी इन्हें बनाने वालों की। पिछले 200 साल में इस नई किस्म की पढ़ाई पढ़ इस समाज ने इस इकाई दहाई सैकड़ा हजार को शून्य बना।
We have hope. We have hope.
God, no. We already have 5,000 acre of farmers with us, with Bhagati, with Prakriti.
And I think,
nature is gone.
I think agroforestry from a commercial angle is going to grow in the rural sector in a tremendous way also when they start realizing the value of it also economically apart from environmentally. So I think
combine it with CBG. That's the government's policy. They say 5,000 CBG plants are to be fixed. It's simple.
Kalpana, what about you? You've actually been able to get many of the stakeholders on the same plate. What do you foresee in the coming times? Do you see more people coming forward, playing a very critical role in changing their lifestyles, in changing their habitats together?
So I think there's a lot of hope because the kind of work that I'm doing and I'm seeing the results, how people are coming together. So I think there is a lot of hope. Only thing is we need to give a lot of awareness to people today. A lot of awareness is missing. And with the COVID kind of situation, I think many people got connected to their resources, right? And water is something that you get connected to. And at least they started thinking, what if you didn't have a tanker, what do you do in a COVID situation? Maybe the driver doesn't come or you will not get the tanker, then what is, it's like a dead end situation, right? So you start thinking your resources. But I also want to tell the government, please reduce your subsidies on municipal water. And our future of our cities cannot depend on this water that comes from 200 plus kilometers away. Let us start, restoring our own ground resources. Let us become sustainable homes. Like my home, we don't need a single tanker. We hardly use municipal water. We mostly, use rainwater. I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, through COVID, the last worry in our minds was water. So I think reducing the subsidy will make people think about other resources of water. And I think groundwater is something people should think about, talk about. And the government should also give powers to local communities to manage their own water. Like I'm working on a micro watershed. So it can become a healthy watershed where segregation, where everything becomes, because the only destruction to the water bodies is all the waste that you dump in these water bodies. Everything should be a rounded plan, and I think government should start rewarding communities in a very big way and give power locally. Yeah.
No, a very beautiful thing which in the morning Rajinder Singh ji said, he's the waterman of India. He said that look at Ganga, it's become so clean. And what does it prove? There's we who are actually creating what we are on Ganga. So it's we who need to take responsibility at the end of the day. I really also want to thank Business World for bringing so many stars on this platform. Thank you, Anurag Patra. Thank you, the entire team. It's with platforms like this that we're able to reach our message to many people who want to be part of this and who are really looking for inspiring leaders like some of us. Thank you so much.